Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Married with Children, the ladies of Married with Children, as we look back throughout the iconic series, the comedy series that spread all across America, Canada, but most importantly, all of the world, Europe, South America, Spain, Germany, France, Italy, subbed and dubbed in so many different languages throughout the world. There was 11 seasons. There was more than 100 episodes. So many actresses have appeared throughout the series, and we're delighted this evening to be joined by the one and only Brandy Ledford, who appeared in season 9, episode 14, playing the name of her first name as well, Brandy, the naked and the dead, but mostly the naked. And Brandy, first of all, Married with Children, back in 1995, I suppose you were up and coming, sort of a young sort of an actress for you. At the time, was it all exciting? Was it all sort of an exciting sort of universe for you? And how did the opportunity come about for you to get involved in Married with Children?
Hi, well, first of all, thank you for asking me to be on the show. I think it's such a great idea. Married with Children is such an iconic show, and everybody loved it. Everybody knows it. Yes, it was very exciting for me, because by season 9, we knew of the show's popularity, and it was a really big job as an up-and-coming actress to get. It was the job that, it was one of the very first acting jobs I ever got. It was one of the first auditions I ever went on. I just, like every actress, especially up and coming, I just auditioned, and I had a call back, and then I got the part. But what was really interesting is that I worked with Bud, the actor who played Bud,
David
and he was just so kind. Yes, David was so kind, and it didn't feel pretentious. It just felt like they were a family, and I was lucky to be there for, the few days of filming. But what was really exciting, and I'm still to this day when I work, I get excited to step on a lot, a studio lot, but to be able to go into the Sony lot and just to, be there and to be part of something was, I'll never forget those first times I ever worked, walking through the gates. It was just that old Hollywood nostalgia that I had, that love of Hollywood and making movies and making TV shows. And but I'll compare it to, I was on Modern Family with Ed O'Neill, who played albundy on Married with Children.
Do you remember you?
Well, here's the thing is, when I was on Modern Family, I was on the very second episode. So it hadn't gained any notoriety yet. Nobody had heard of Modern Family. It hadn't aired. So it wasn't really exciting to be on that show. It is now to say I was on it, and it reruns a lot. And I love my cast members and I love the show. But it was a different vibe because it was just another comedy that Ed O'Neill was starring in. And he was super kind. And I wouldn't say he remembered me, but he was really gracious and kind. But it was different, to be on a really wildly successful show that hadn't even reached its audience yet, was such a difference versus being on Married with Children. Similar to when I was on Baywatch, that was already a huge show when I came on and starred in it. You understand, you get that feeling, and it creates an energy. So I definitely had that on Married with Children.
And I suppose, Brandy, you mentioned there you were a young actress, and I suppose Married with Children, it was season 9 when you came into the show. I suppose it was a household series all across America, watching so many sort of homes. So when you got the news that you got the gig and you would be appearing, did you ring home your parents to tell them that you were going to be appearing in Married with Children? And what was their sort of initial reaction?
They were really happy for me. I think parents get relieved when their children get jobs. I was young and I got a job. So I think that was that. But, really, I was nervous. You can see, if you watch the episode, you can see how nervous I was. I was like, I didn't even have my voice. I was so nervous. And yes, my parents were really happy. They've always, from the beginning of my career till this day, been happy and proud of me. But yeah, I think it was mostly just relief, like, oh my gosh, she got a job.
I gotta go.
Another emergency bypass, Dr. Bundy?
Yes. Yes, it appears my beeper has just gone off. also. See you
And I suppose in terms of your character, Brandy, she is a sort of, she was an exotic sort of dancer in the Jiggly Room, a sort of such, tending to a young, let's say, hormonal Bud Bundy. But I suppose Bud was telling her the little bit of white lies in terms of his popularity as such and his sort of endeavours. But you sort of you had a sort of bit of an accent to your sort of voice. Was that sort of pre-planned, or where did that sort of come about?
Well, I do think I planned that. It's hard to remember, but I also know for me, when I get nervous, I start speaking in a Southern accent. So I don't know why. So that just probably, I could easily say as an actress, yes, I made that creative choice, but most likely I was just totally nervous. And that's what happens to me when I get nervous.
And being on the set and working with David, I suppose it was second nature to David at that stage. He had not probably over 100 episodes done under his belt, and you were trying to portray a sort of a chemistry with sort of David. And I suppose pretending to be in a dancer and I suppose erotic dancer as such in the episode. Did you find it sort of humorous as such? Was there an awful lot of laughs and cracks and bit of jokes when the camera stopped rolling?
Yes, but you know, God, it's hard to remember. I do remember it being funny because of what I was wearing. You know, that feathery, I think it was like a feathery sort of
outfit,
bikini. Yeah. And just Bud, because David is so funny. And just that scene was written so well that it lended humor no matter what the actual situation was when the camera wasn't rolling. And I think he might have not really been acting. I think he might have felt a little something. So, you know, I'm not sure, but I would imagine.
It happens. Brandy, I suppose in terms of Married with Children then, and when the episode appeared on TV and when you saw it for the first time, what was the initial reaction? Did you sit down with sort of family and loved ones at the times, or do you remember the first time you ever saw yourself on the show?
I do remember the first time I watched the episode. I don't remember who I was sitting with, but probably friends, you know, but and to this day, whenever I see myself on TV, you know, we pick apart the worst parts of ourselves. So like I see things I don't like immediately, but I was happy. I liked the way I played it. I liked the fun nature of it all. And, you know, probably I cringe when I see myself on TV. So I'm sure that wasn't different then. And wishing I made different choices. I'm sure that was part of it. But it was so, I mean, it's still, I love seeing myself on TV all the time. You know, just that it happens is a miracle. I think it's so hard to work as an actress and to get a job. And I've been really blessed to get lots of jobs. And so anytime I see myself on TV, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I got that job. And that seemed like that was such a big deal for me, Married with Children. I can't even tell you. It was at the height of its highest success, and I was just starting out, and I had this role, you know, co-starring role, which was a big deal back then. I mean, it's a big deal for any actress trying to get a job, especially, you know, one of my very first jobs. And so that all really, the journey to get to that was already sort of the meat for me. So watching it on TV was great and it's amazing, but I really love the process of getting towards the TV airing, you know, the episode airing. I like the process of, and I still do. I love the audition process and the filming process and the nerves and the energy and the makeup and the wardrobe and the creative and the planning and the getting into the character. I'll tell you this though, I was such a theatrically trained actress at that time that even though I played many bimbos when I started out, I really got into their characters. So I would have done a lot of homework on Brandy, the stripper, and what that was like. You know, I would have done a lot of that work. And so I would have been excited.
And I suppose, Brandy, you mentioned there about being one of your first jobs in Hollywood and the industry as such. And you weren't the only one in terms of that. So many high-class female celebrities like Denise Richards as well. It was her first gig as well. So you're in a sort of illustrious sort of company when you see the amount of really renowned actresses that have gone on to major things throughout their careers. That their first break really was Married with Children, playing one of those girls, playing one of Bud Bundy, David Faustino's love's interests, and he certainly had the pick of the women anyway.
Yeah, he did. Do you know, Denise and I ended up being friends. We met again a year later and starred in an Aaron Spelling TV show together, and are still friends to this day. And we often talk about some of the other shows that we had both been in at that same time. You know, the early 90s and the mid 90s was such a great, robust time for filmmaking, for TV shows, and for us. And so there were a lot of little other shows that we had both been on as well.
And I suppose, Brandy, just in relation to Married with Children there, you mentioned coming on season 9, and Married with Children was probably in scrutiny as well throughout the USA at the time, in terms of there was protests at the time about people in terms of it being too adult sort of themed, being sort of more flaunchy and sort of rated sort of content, and more like but in fairness to Married with Children, it was geared to a male demographic, 16 to 35-year-old sort of males. That was its big sort of audience. But it was, I suppose, it had an awful lot of sex appeal, and it had that sort of theme running through it as such. But it wasn't too over the top or too raunchy. It was sort of really sort of light-hearted humor with a touch of sex appeal, but they never really overdid it as sort of such as just being an awful lot that has come since it then that has probably stepped over the boundaries a lot more. Do you think maybe the criticism at the time in terms of the 80s, do you think it was unworthy that Married with Children got in terms of that?
What's the question? Do I feel like
the criticism it got in terms of that sort of sex appeal that it sort of threw out there in the 80s and 90s? Do you think this criticism that some of the critics, do you think the criticism was a bit over the top?
I do, and yet I respect their right to have that opinion, you know, and it was sort of the beginning of a breakthrough. Now, you know, that is tame. So imagine, right? How long ago was that? 25 years ago?
25 years ago, yeah.
Right. So, well, 26 years ago, I guess this month. Yeah. But so that the trajectory from them thinking that was risque compared to what we have going on now.
Yeah.
It seems to me now, like, I mean, really, yeah. So it's the beginning, and that was the beginning. And like I said, I really respect people's right to have an opinion about a thing. But I think the takeaway for me from that is that you really just can't make everybody happy. If they're going to protest about Married with Children, you know, this really family, vanilla, sweet, funny show, they just want something to do, I think. You know, but do they have valid points? Would we have been better off if we heeded those warnings and stayed a little more pure? I don't know, but it's less entertaining.
And I suppose, Brandy, in terms of Married with Children and being on it and seeing your family and loved ones, and in terms of your CV and your credits of all the jobs you've done throughout the industry, does that still really hold really good memories for you? Would it be in your top 10 in terms of what you've done in terms of your career so far?
At the time, having that on my resume, on my list of credits, was so helpful. It got me in so many doors. That, along with a couple other shows I did around that same time, it really, I think it changed my life. I think Married with Children really, really, really changed my career and helped me in a lot of ways. It is something I'm proud of. It is something I'm still proud of, because it was, you know, it was so well loved. You talk about those people protesting the nature of it, but I mean, it went on for a really long time, and it was really successful. And every single one of those actors became really successful afterwards. I mean, Christina Applegate is like the funniest person in the world. Katie Sagal is amazing. Ed O'Neill on Modern, you know, like, it did a lot of good for a lot of people. And so I am proud of it. I am proud of it. Even if my role was just this little fun, sexy, flirty, small part of a big show, like, and again, I'll say it this way, just the fact that this girl who just got out of acting school, just quit modeling, got a job on a really big show, just by hard work and grit is amazing. And it's so fulfilling.
And I suppose, Brandy, coming off that sort of set in Married with Children, it seems to me you had so many sort of fond memories in terms of a good experience. Did it give you that sense of self-belief and raise your self-esteem? You went on to appear in Baywatch and other sort of TV series, which obviously was a bit more in terms of actressing, in terms of what that demanded. That was another level compared to what Married with Children was. But did it fill you with that sort of self-confidence and self-belief that to pursue projects like Baywatch and stuff like that when you had done Married with Children?
Absolutely. Well, 100%. That's what I'm saying. Being on such a big show like Married with Children, it really, work begets work. Like, it just really made me more ambitious, more confident, I felt more legitimate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't just have school plays and theatrical, theater school work on my resume. I had a really big, bona fide, great show to say that I was on. And back then, I don't know how it is now, because now it's all about your social media followers. But back then, and for a really long time, which studio, which producer, which director hired you, and you working on which show meant something. It really meant that you were qualified, or at least good enough. And so when those start adding up, it builds confidence, and it also helps strengthen your resume, your chances of getting another job. So that always is exciting and helpful.
And I suppose, Brandy, we're coming to our conclusion now. Time is sort of catching up on us. But if I to start to finish off the interview, and probably the hardest question I'm going to ask you now, you'll probably have to rack your brains to think about this. Let's pretend there was a Married with Children encyclopedia, a sort of dictionary as such, and they put your character Brandy in the Married with Children encyclopedia. And they started ringing around the actresses and actors who played various different guest star roles in Married with Children throughout the years. And they came across your character, Brandy, and they left 2 blank sentences underneath her name. And they rang you up, Brandy Ledford, and they asked you, having portrayed Brandy in Married with Children, to write those 2 sentences. What would you like those 2 sentences to read to describe your character?
2 sentences?
Yeah, 2 sentences, yeah.
Okay. That's such a great question. Okay. A young, fun, beautiful, sexy, exotic dancer with a heart of gold. That's
you only needed one. You only needed one.
I'm
Brandy,
all about condensing.
Brandy Ledford, an absolute pleasure talking to you today to relive your memories of your time playing your first name, actually, Brandy, in Married with Children, season 9, episode 14, The Naked and the Dead, but mostly the naked. Brandy Ledford, an absolute pleasure talking to you in these sort of troublesome times for everyone. And hopefully you have a prosperous 2021 and loads of opportunities. And please God, who knows, sometime in the future we may get to chat again sometime.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I had fun.
Cheers. Take care, Brandy.
Thank you.